Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, and my friends, we have had the Happy Chaos DLC trailer drop for Guilty Gear Strive at the Red Bull Kumite in Las Vegas. I happened to be on site, so I got to see that all live. It was really cool. And yes, as a quick note, as a noted Gold Lewis superfan and supporter, it was definitely really fun and neat to see Gold Lewis win the whole thing. Realistically, Gold Lewisy didn't go all the way, I guess you could say. Gobo only really picked him for the final match, that's it, because he has a pretty decent match against Eno. But still, he technically won the whole deal, therefore Gold Lewis has to be the best character in Guilty Gear Strive. But we are not here to talk about Gold Lewis today, perhaps more at a later time. We are here to talk about Happy Chaos making his debut in Guilty Gear Strive. Now, Happy Chaos being a DLC character, well, that surprises exactly nobody, right? Like, let's be honest. We all knew he was gonna be a character. He basically stole the show in the cinematic story mode. He's a pretty fun villain. Like, yeah, he might just be sort of the Joker, but a weird hobgoblin, but still, he's pretty fun. And the English voiceover specifically knocks it out of the park. Like, the English voice to me makes the character. And here we have him in the game, and he's a gunslinger, and he definitely has a no-care kind of attitude. He has his jacket just loosely hanging off his arm, he walks like he doesn't give an F. You can definitely sense that he's probably not giving the fight his full attention. He is also coming out pretty soon. So if you happen to have the Season 1 DLC pass, then he'll be out November the 30th, and if not, you gotta wait a couple days into the beginning of December. He will be the last character we're getting for this year. The other two DLC characters will be in 2022. However, that said, he looks like a very strong and interesting addition to the cast, so that's just plain fantastic. That said, now let's break down the trailer. So our trailer opens up with a scene that's near the finale of the Guilty Gear Strive plot, where Happy Chaos is about to turbocharge Eno and make her basically a god, but he's saying, hey, maybe you won't believe me on this one, but I actually hope you guys win. Because I'd like to see you again, and hey, he's a DLC character, so I guess he's seeing us again. And spoiler for the plot, he shows up in the end credits as well, so he's definitely not done for. Everyone has their own specific little tagline, their own little call sign, and he's the restorer of humanity. Which perhaps is a hint at the second story mode, because he's definitely not restoring much. He's kind of ending humanity, or at least attempting to, in the story of Guilty Gear Strive. His intro, just to show the kind of jerk that he is actually interfering with the opponent's intro. So they're doing their own thing, and he's just walking by him like, hey buddy, what's up? Sorry about that. Which honestly is perfectly in line with the character. He definitely just kind of doesn't care about anything. This other tagline is pretty funny as well, the gun-slinging broken messiah, which is pretty interesting because he went from the guy who like invented magic to weird pervert goblin man, so broken is a good term. Now into the gameplay, right off the bat, we got some weird stuff to work with because he's got definitely all unique mechanics for him. As you can see, this green targeting reticule here. And of course, naturally, he's using gun, so you gotta assume the targeting reticule has something to do with the gun. One of the interesting things just right off the bat here, as you can see, the reticule is it starts big and then expands downwards. So perhaps that's an accuracy mechanic, as we'll talk about later in the trailer as well. And he's just kind of opening up with two crouching light kicks. So the reticule is doing its thing, like regardless of what he's actually doing. So either it's more of a passive style of mechanic, or perhaps a negative edge where he's holding down a button while also hitting kick. That I guess we'll have to wait and see. But after the two kicks, you can see very clearly he does shoot the gun. And now speaking of shooting the gun, we have a different kind of gunshot here. So first off, the targeting reticule is different. It's yellow, not green. So perhaps indicating a stronger shot because one, as you can see, it launches when it connects, but it's also a guard break. Like Garuda Impact, like a Behemoth Typhoon. This move is a guard break if you block this move. So it's definitely a much more significant move because guard break on block and big old launch on hit. So you have to assume the inference is immediately the yellow targeting reticule is a much bigger deal than the green one. The green one could be like weaker hits, softer hits, faster, I don't know, but the yellow one is the real deal because it has a lot of power on that shot. And the interesting stuff, that's already really cool, right? But he can also make decoys slash clones. This is a very interesting mechanic here. So as you can see, he hops backwards and the clone takes his place, and Nagoriyuki, well, he straight up obliterates it, right? So at the very least, it's moving you backwards, so you can assume he's at least a soft zoning style of character. He'll want to do a lot of damage from far away. Because a move that lets you retreat while also tanking a hit for you definitely helps a keep away style of play. And that said here, the real question is, so yeah, it takes a hit, right? But can you hit Happy Chaos past that? Or is it more like Zato's oppose style of move? Because if it's like oppose and he'll always take a hit guaranteed and Happy Chaos always gets away for free, that's going to be very strong. When he lands, there's a bit of a color flash from him, and that color flash seems to apply the targeting reticule effect, from which we see Happy kind of move forward, a kick into a gunshot, and then perhaps a stance sort of move where he's walking forward and can then just shoot his gun. This might be the kind of deal, the advancing move, where you might have multiple options from it, because it has Nagoriyuki scared enough to keep still and blocking, and then he gets thrown. So we start our next section here with a lot of stuff going on. So the first thing is, yes, there's another clone created. It has a different pose. That could be purely cosmetic. He's a silly kind of character, so who knows, right? But from that, we have that another flash we see from him, and immediately goes to the yellow targeting reticule this time to shoot. We have the big launch, and then we have some combo potential from the launch, which makes sense. You know, you get a combo from a launcher, right? But this just adds more mystery to the targeting reticule, because after we have our big launcher here, so once again, yellow targeting, that means big shot launch. He goes for a combat roll style of move, but the targeting reticule applies before he actually hits the enemy, as you can see there. So before he started his next hits, it was already on the enemy. So what's the trigger for this, as it were, right? Is it negative edge? Is it a weird passive effect if he does certain moves? This is one of the more interesting things that I guess we might have to wait till we get our hands on the character to find out. After this little mini combo, it could be stand kick into 6p, maybe. We get this, and what could this be? It's a super, obviously enough, right? Because you have the big flash, but he's not attacking, therefore you have to infer from this that it is some sort of buff or install style of super. Alternatively, as we'll get to later in the trailer, he does have multiple resource bars to work with, so maybe it's a very quick resource fill up. Whatever it is though, it's definitely not a normal super. From that point, we move on in the trailer. So a throw tech, and then we see his taunt or respect, just giving a nice little clap. What a classy guy. Going into our next gameplay bit here, we see a pretty decently long range move. That could be crouching slash or heavy slash, and another decoy slash dummy. Different pose again, so it remains to be seen if it's just like an aesthetic choice, like here's him doing silly poses, or it could be like, you know, each pose is a different button giving a different kind of dummy. Going from there though, you can see he's reloading his gun. This will have direct consequence in gameplay for sure, because reloading, well, he has bullets, we'll show it in a bit here, but he definitely has a resource to manage with that. And also at the end of this sequence, we see that little green flash come from him again. The targeting reticule shows up again. So it feels like those are definitely linked in some manner. And at the absolute end of this, you can see he's also pointing his gun. So having the gun out could be a stance, or maybe it cuts right before he shoots the bullet. Now here we lead up to the big reveal. This is where a lot of the meat and potatoes of the trailer is, because we can see he's a multi-resource based character. Now, what do I mean by that? If you look in the corner here, he has a green gauge and a bullet gauge, and they're both separate mechanics, and I guess you have to manage them independently of each other. While he's doing this gun walk move, every time he shoots the gun, it takes one bullet, and it also takes a decent portion of that green gauge. The bullet stuff, easy enough to understand. You shoot your bullets, you run out, then you have to reload. So like similar to Aaron Black in Mortal Kombat, right? Easy enough to understand. The green gauge, though, is a lot more tantalizing. So while in the stance, the shots do drain the green gauge, yes, but it's also slowly draining while the targeting reticules are on the screen. So perhaps this gauge governs the targeting reticule mechanic. And on top of that, you can also see shots straight up whiff. Mei is moving backwards and the shots aren't connecting. So as shown earlier in the trailer, the longer the targeting reticule is held, it sort of shrinks on the character, right? So if you try to shoot immediately, I guess that leaves it in an inaccurate state. You can potentially miss your shot if the enemy moves. If it tightens in all the way, more than likely that's a guaranteed deal. So while you're not quite aiming the gun directly like Elfelt in Guilty Gear Xrd, there still is an accuracy proponent to this whole mechanic. So a character with 2 different separate resources, which is also a bit of a trend because now all 3 DLC characters to date have had their own resource meters. Also, I just think this is neat. So if Happy Chaos loses by timeout, he gets all pissy and just shoots the clock, which I think is pretty funny. And in our last bit of proper gameplay, we see a cinematic super, at least the start looks to be a cinematic super move, and it's hitting Faust. And so the interesting thing here that's inferring is he's shooting into the portal and the bullets will hit you wherever you are because the Faust Scarecrow teleported behind him and he's near the corner, so it wall breaks Faust because he's in the corner. Effectively, wherever you happen to be, you will still get hit by this super. That is the magic of portals. And that is it for the gameplay in the trailer. So very interesting, multi-resource mechanics. He definitely is not playing like anyone else, going by what we have seen before. He appears to be some manner of zoner, maybe. This right here, the cinematic, I believe is just the startup of the other super we saw before. But yeah, this game doesn't have much in the way of long-range combatants. Axel is really the only other one. So perhaps Happy Chaos will also fill that role. He's out not too far from now. You may recall a previous video where we said the next reveal was going to be on the 19th. My understanding is, talking to Red Bull staff on site, a lot of stuff in the Kumite was a little last minute, so perhaps he originally was going to be debuted on the 19th, and well, things changed and he showed up a little earlier for a bigger event. Also, I thought he was going to be the last DLC because last DLC comes with the second story mode and he's a big deal in the plot. So if not him, then who, I guess, is the real question. That all said, my friends, it is now the end of the video, so when he launches, make sure to check the channel. I'll have everything you need, coverage, combos, guides, all that kind of stuff for Happy Chaos. He looks really interesting, and I'm really excited to see how he's going to turn out. Otherwise, well, thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well. Go out and play some Guilty Gear.